While Illinois' pension debt increased over the past year, you've got a group of unions looking to enhance public sector employee pension benefits for those hired after 2011, but the overall cost is not known. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. On Friday, there was an hours-long hearing by the House Personnel and Pensions Committee where they discussed a plan that the We Are One coalition, a coalition of unions, Pat Devaney, as a member of that, talking to the committee on what they're wanting to do with Tier 2 pensions. Again, it's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Last week, we talked pensions a couple of times. It's no secret Illinois has among the worst pension problem in the country, if not the worst. $144 billion unfunded pension liability. It's funded about 46%, while the funding ratios increased a little bit. So is the debt. And that's going to be, the debt will hold, according to projections from the Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability, for like the next 8 years or so, before it actually starts going down, costing taxpayers in the state of Illinois increasingly more each year, from $11.5 billion to like $18.5 billion by 2045. So you've got all of these numbers, big numbers, right? But when they made pension reform in 2010, those hired after 2011 had fewer pension benefits, known as Tier 2. And now, 12 years later, they're looking at it and they're saying, oh my gosh, this isn't going to comport with Social Security standards. This could end up having the state face fines for not having enough pension benefits going to these Tier 2 employees. It's not just state employees, it's local government employees as well that are part of the overall pension law. So, you have these unions come over the past year saying we need to enhance Tier 2 benefits. We're having trouble recruiting. We're having trouble retaining. And you got this Social Security issue. So a lot of conversation behind the scenes as to what this bill is going to look like. Pat Devaney with the We Are One coalition laying out just a brief overview, hopefully not too technically complex, but here's Pat Devaney from Friday's Illinois House Personnel and Pensions Committee. And let's hear it. And go. Here we are. Let me, doing this on the fly, as they like to say. Let's go ahead and let's do it live.
In general, our bill is comprehensive, and it aims to solve four major buckets of benefit deficiencies: age investing, final average salary, salary cap, and the cost of living adjustment, or that annual automatic increase that some people refer to it as. And you're going to hear about what our proposed solution is around that. The last thing, second to last thing that I'll mention is that the thing that's in the room that we have to get to, but unfortunately we're not provided with the information to have an in-depth conversation about it today, is what the cost of these proposed changes are going to be. It's going to, my understanding, that COGFA did their initial analysis on our proposal where they provided a summary of the different changes that were going to take place, but are currently engaged with an actuary trying to determine the impacts of the cost of this benefit. All I'll say to you on behalf of our coalition is we're eager also to find out exactly what these costs are, because we want any sort of solution to be fiscally responsible. We do not want to set the state back on what we saw in the previous gubernatorial administration, where the state is months behind in paying their bills, has no rainy day fund, isn't making a pension payment, and much less in addition to what's required as the current administration has. We stand ready to work with the leaders in the General Assembly and the governor's office to identify revenue to pay for our proposals when the costs are known. That's a little bit difficult to talk about in a vacuum because the state has many revenue needs and competing interests currently.
Including a projected $3 billion budget deficit for the next fiscal year, $4 billion the following year, and then $5 billion annual deficits for the following 3 years. Governor Pritzker said this could cost, $3 to $6 billion just to come in line with Social Security. But even that was very opaque. People weren't really clear on what exactly the standard was, how much it would cost Illinois to come into compliance with. And that's something that Republican State Representative Stephen Reich was concerned about in this overall conversation about enhancing Tier 2 benefits when we've got the worst unfunded liability in the country for all of Illinois' pensions. And the cost of this new proposal, nobody knows.
Actually paying for and what they're getting. And if they want increased benefits, they're going to have to pay a certain amount maybe in increased costs, and we're going to have to make up the difference somewhere on the state level. But it gives us a number. It gives us something that we can talk about that isn't like $143 billion out here. And I think it gives the taxpayers, the people who are actually paying the bill, an understanding of what we are doing about this debt. Because this debt is hanging over us like the sword of Damocles, and it's never going to go away unless we do something about it, specifically dealing with the debt. I have my own ideas on it, but we're not going to go into them here.
So Reich went on to just address the issue of the unknowns in all of this. Separately, when I talked with Ted Dabrowski from Wire Points last week, we talked about Tier 2 pension enhancements while we're facing this $143.7 billion unfunded liability.
So it's funny. We should be talking about how we cut the pension debt, how we figure out how to reform pensions so they're not so big. And, we've talked a lot about how big some of these pensions are. But instead of doing that, right now our legislature is debating how much to increase benefits on Tier 2. And and what's amazing about that is that there's some plans that want to increase benefits a lot, and that just absolutely ignores the taxpayer, or they just think the taxpayers are going to pay for it. And some of these Tier 2 plans increase costs for taxpayers by billions, some as much as 80 billion. And so we're not going to fix Illinois until we fire a bunch of those politicians who refuse to talk about pension reform. We need a constitutional amendment, so we need to get that on the ballot. We need to let the public vote on it, and then assuming that we get a pass on that, we need to lower pensions and create a new retirement system going forward.
So again, the idea that some have at the State House is change the Constitution, put that question up to voters, see if they're down with this idea. But there's been no political will to even broach that idea by the Democratic majority. So while you had unions to a House committee talk about the support they have for enhancing Tier 2 benefits, you had a collection of municipal leaders with a group that would address the committee as well.
Then we have Mark Fowler, Executive Director for the Northwest Municipal Conference.
So Mark Fowler got up to address the committee, and just real briefly here, some of what he had to say.
While we recognize the need for legislators to respond to concerns with state pension systems, applying any of the previously introduced legislation to municipal pension systems, namely police, fire, and IMRF, threatens to undermine the stability of these pension funds at the expense of local taxpayers.
So obviously not something that's just impacting state employees, but local employees, police, fire, the run-of-the-mill IMRF members, Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund members. This is an ongoing issue. I've been reporting on this for 10 plus years. We'll continue to report on it because the Illinois taxpayer definitely on the hook for a lot of this. So how much is it going to cost? And what are the economic consequences? Stuff we'll continue to talk about. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily.